What if I told you that you could actually master the single most complex and powerful machine you'll ever operate? And yeah, I'm talking about your own mind. In this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the incredible wisdom from Gaur Gopal amazing book, Energize Your Mind, and really uncover a practical guide for living a more intentional, more mindful life. And this right here, this one idea, is the anchor for everything we're about to explore. It's such a powerful metaphor for how we deal with life's challenges. See, it's not the fact that problems exist that sinks us. It's whether we let them get inside, breach our defenses and flood our minds. So who's our guide on this journey? Well, it's Gaur Gopal, and he has this truly unique perspective. Get this. He started out as an electrical engineer at Hewlett-Packard before making a huge shift to become a monk and a life coach. And that cool background lets him blend ancient wisdom with real, practical psychology. And that's the powerful lens we're going to be using today. Okay, so if we're going to talk about keeping our ship from sinking, we have to start with the most famous ship of all, right? The Titanic. You probably think you know the story, but the way it went down holds a really profound lesson for building our own mental and emotional strength. And here is the key, the real insight. Life is always going to have its icebergs. I mean, there will always be unexpected problems, setbacks, challenges. You just can't avoid them. So what really matters is the construction of our ship, our mind. Have we built it to withstand the hit, or are we just going to let all that chaos flood right in? Building a strong ship, though, it's not just about facing those external icebergs. It's also about managing the waters inside, our own emotions. And how do we do that? Well, the author has this perfect way of illustrating it through a pretty surprising encounter with a speaker who was, well, let's just say she wasn't quite what she seemed. Meet Sophia. She could give a totally flawless speech, and she could mimic over 50 different facial expressions. But every single response, every smile, it was just code. She had artificial intelligence, sure, but zero genuine emotion. And that story just brilliantly highlights what makes us human. We aren't programmed. Our feelings are real, they're messy, they're powerful, and you know what? That's our greatest strength. So, the real question becomes, how do we manage these powerful emotions without just stuffing them down or letting them totally sink us? The book gives us this incredibly simple yet really profound framework for it. Feel, deal, and heal. First up, we feel. And this isn't just about saying I'm sad or I'm angry. It's about developing what experts call emotional agility. You gotta get specific. Are you just frustrated or are you feeling betrayed? Are you anxious or are you just completely overwhelmed? Putting the right name on your emotion is the absolute first, crucial step toward mastering. Okay, next, we deal. Once you've named the emotion, you gotta assess its power. Is this just a little storm cloud you can kind of watch and let pass by? Or is this a full-blown hurricane that demands you take action? Set a boundary, have a tough conversation. This is where you take back your power and choose your response. And finally, we heal. There's this great fable in the book about a boy who hammers nails into a fence every single time he gets angry. And yeah, he can pull the nails out later, but the holes are still there. Our actions, when they're driven by emotion, they can leave scars that need real time and conscious effort to mend. Now, one of the biggest icebergs in modern life, one that is constantly threatening to flood our minds with negative feelings, is the comparison trap. And the author shares this perfect story about it from a flight to London. So he was totally thrilled to get an emergency exit seat with tons of legroom. But then he just glances over at the business class passengers with their flatbeds and boom, he feels that little pang of envy. His focus completely shifted from what he had to what he didn't have, and it almost ruined his whole experience. Sound familiar? And that is exactly what social media does to us, just amplified a million times over. We are constantly comparing our full, messy, unedited, behind-the-scenes life with everyone else's perfectly polished highlight reel. It is a game we literally cannot win. And the scale of this is just staggering. That 4B on your screen, it represents more than 4 billion people scrolling through these highlight reels every single month. This constant exposure fuels that fear of missing out, or FOMO, and it is a massive, silent drain on all of our mental energy. So we've talked about external challenges, we've talked about social pressures, but what about the noise that's going on inside our own heads? Let's meet a character the author calls Joshua, who is a perfect stand-in for our restless minds. Does this feel familiar? For so many of us, our internal world is just this chaotic storm of thoughts and worries and half-finished to-do lists and random memories. It's this relentless mental chatter that can make it almost impossible to find even a single moment of peace. So the author saw this toddler named Joshua just dart away from his parents in his super crowded airport, and instantly it's just chaos and panic. And right in that moment, he had this realization. That's our mind. It's constantly wandering off, getting into trouble, creating stress, unless we learn how to gently but firmly guide it back. So how do we manage our inner Joshua? Well, the book offers 4 brilliant strategies. We can neglect its pointless little tantrums for attention. We can note down those distracting but important thoughts, like, oh, I gotta email that person back, and that frees up mental space. We can negotiate, promising our mind a little reward for a period of focus. And finally, we can learn to simply observe our thoughts, just watching them pass by without getting hooked, like clouds in the sky. And all of this brings us to one of the most powerful forms of mental chatter there is, anxiety. It's that little voice that's always asking, what if? So how do we turn that paralyzing question into a powerful reason to take action? The night before his first skydive, the author's mind was just a storm of what-if questions. What if the parachute fails? What if something goes wrong? These thoughts are supposed to keep us safe, but they can also just keep us stuck, completely paralyzed by the fear of what we don't know. And this quote, it just captures the solution perfectly. Getting past anxiety isn't about having all the answers or seeing the whole path laid out in front of you. It's about finding the courage to take just one single step into the unknown. Ultimately, it all boils down to this. Your mind can be your greatest friend or your worst enemy. It can build you up or it can tear you down. The tools we've explored today are all about making that a conscious choice. The decision of which mind to build, to strengthen, and to befriend, well, that's yours. So which one are you going to choose?